Hi, welcome to the 14-day weather forecast. Without further ado, I'll say that things are looking interesting as we head through the festive season, but the details are very uncertain. I'm going to start by taking a look at the view across Europe and the North Atlantic. The sequence here uses data from the GFS model and it runs from 18 GMT Tuesday the 21st. At the outset, it's mainly dry with high pressure still influencing things, but that changes during the first few days. Outbreaks of rain push up from the southwest, the Atlantic returns. But then, as we head towards Christmas, look what happens. Colder air starts moving down from the north. The boundary zone between cold and mild becomes established over the UK, and it's steadily sinking southwards through Christmas Day. Now, there is the potential for sleet or snow to develop close to that boundary zone, but just how far south it progresses is quite uncertain at the moment. But it does look as though some places will be getting a white Christmas. I'll continue this, and what we see is cold air continues sinking southwards through Boxing Day, but then it becomes a very messy picture indeed in southern and central Britain. There's this rather deep area of low pressure bringing heavy outbreaks of rain, sleet, and on its northern edge, snow. Just exactly the track that takes is open to debate at the moment. How much it deepens is also a question. So whether it's going to bring significant amounts of snow to southern and central Britain is, as I say, an open question at this stage. But in the following days, this GFS sequence shows cold conditions continuing to dominate across the UK. We're finishing here on Tuesday, the 28th. There's an area of low pressure just to the north of Scotland, bringing the potential for outbreaks of rain, sleet, and snow. High pressure here just to the west, to the northwest, and further down the line, the chance of Atlantic weather fronts starting to return, maybe towards the new year. But that's all, as I say, a long, long way off. I'm going to also show a sequence using data from the Canadian GEM model, and this one starts at 00 GMT on Christmas Day. At this point, the boundary between cold and mild is across Northern Ireland, Northern England. Through the day, it steadily moves southwards, and even parts of southern England, some parts at least, could see a few flakes of snow. And that is all it would take for a technical white Christmas to be recorded. In the days which follow, this shows a possibility of some heavier snow in southern England for a time. Significant accumulations would be possible. Then by the 28th, it looks rather similar in many ways to the GFS animation. Low pressure just here. In this case, it's to the northeast of Scotland, but roughly the same sort of thing, with a cold pattern across the country, rain, sleet, and snow showers in places. Well, those animations are both suggesting the potential for wintry conditions, so I think it's worth taking a look at the air mass and 2-meter temperature charts just to see how things develop. These are at about 1,500 meters above sea level, generated using data from the GFS model. And this is 18 GMT, Wednesday the 22nd. The UK here is under rather mild air. That's indicated by the greens and yellows. The blues and purples to the north and the east is where the cold is. If we jump forwards to Christmas Day, 21 GMT, the cold's now sinking southwards across most of the country. It's really just southern counties, mostly to the south of London, perhaps a little bit to the north on this chart, where it remains too mild for snow. Very important, though, to stress that this boundary between cold and mild is moving northwards and southwards on different model runs. It's definitely not settled at this point. In terms of what that all means for 2-meter temperatures, well, here we are, 18 GMT, Wednesday the 22nd. Rather cold, single figures across the UK, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s in the south. Then jumping forwards to Thursday the 23rd, this is when the Atlantic returns and it's bringing outbreaks of rain to much of the UK. It's also turning milder for a time. double figures, 10, 11, 12 Celsius in the south. It's still at this point colder across much of Scotland. Then Boxing Day, these are maximums forecast for the afternoon. It's cold across most of the UK, just above freezing in the north. As we head into central counties, it's also cold, even in the southwest. On this particular chart, it's just southeastern England, really areas to London and the southeast, which are somewhat less cold, even quite mild there. And it's really to do with that boundary zone where that low pressure tracks as it moves eastwards, just how far south or northwards it is centred. All open to change at this point. The general theme is for the colder air to be sinking southwards through Christmas Day and Boxing Day. So, another way of looking at this is the Ensemble data from the UK Met Office MOGREPS model. This also has been trending towards a colder scenario from Christmas Day onwards during recent updates. So it's starting to increase confidence levels in the general pattern. What we can see here is the milder conditions return, the 23rd, the 24th, so temperatures into double figures according to most of the runs. This is for the London area. But then from Christmas Day onwards, again, most runs are dipping down quite sharply, temperatures dropping, it becomes cold. There are still a few runs in this ensemble which are keeping it a lot milder. So that milder scenario can't be discounted, especially not in southern Britain. It's also worth mentioning rainfall, I think, at this point, because with those areas of low pressure tracking eastwards across southern and central regions, perhaps that could well be where the wettest conditions would be. So the chart on the left is showing accumulated rainfall totals for days 0 to 5, for one on the right, days 0 to 10, both generated from the GFS model again. So you can see there 20 millimetres or so in parts of England through days 0 to 5, but then days 0 to 10, the amounts really increase quite significantly in southern and central regions, up to 50, 60, 70 millimetres there in parts of Wales. And as I say, that's really to do with those areas of low pressure and just how far northwards or southwards they go. It's also just worth remembering that these charts are showing accumulated precipitation, so it's not necessarily all rain. Some of this could well be falling as sleet or snow. Well, it's looking like a complicated, messy and wintry picture towards the end of the first week if the GFS and Canadian models are correct. Therefore, do the other deterministics support them? Just to recap, here is the GFS, Tuesday the 28th. Cold air over most of the UK, an area of low pressure close to Scotland. Similar picture with the Canadian model, which I used to create the second sequence. Next, the German icon model. This is significantly different. Less cold air, covering most of the UK, a lot milder if it's correct. Is it out on its own? Well, not really. The European ECM model, generally considered the best of them all, is also showing a significantly milder picture. The cold air really just into Scotland by the 28th. I'm going to say at this point that I've taken a look at the ECM ensemble this morning, and the operational run, this chart, is one of the mildest, if not the mildest, in the ensemble. So I would attach less significance to this because of that than I normally would. Finally, the UK Met Office global model. It's a cold or very cold picture across the UK. You can see the dark blue shading indicating low upper level air temperatures. Taking all these deterministics together, it does increase the level of uncertainty because of the icon and European going for milder solutions, also for differences even between the ones that are opting for a cold scenario. I'm going to conclude at the end of week one and say that a cold outcome is likely across virtually the whole of the UK. There's the potential for significant sleet and snow in places, but with that mild air, probably close to southern counties at times, there's a greater risk of rain as you head southwards. That's not to say there will not be snow in southern counties, there may well be. I'm just saying that the risk of rain increases. How about week 2? Given the uncertainty about the details at the end of week 1, it's important to stress that it's all about trends and probabilities at this range through the second week. Even more so, as I say, because of that uncertain picture which is developing earlier in the forecast period. Anyway, I'll start with the 16-day GEFS plot for London and southern England. Across the top, it shows upper air temperatures. Most of the runs at the beginning of the second week are well below the thick black line, which is the 30-year average. There is good support here for a cold period of weather. So continuing from the end of the first week, well into the second. But you see, as we go forwards, the thick purple line, which is the ensemble mean, climbs and it goes above the thick black line around about the new year. Most of the individual runs are bringing back milder air. There's a reasonably strong signal for that to happen based upon this data. Rainfall and snowfall across the bottom, spikes there continue to appear through the second week. The snow row, which indicates the number of runs in the ensemble forecasting snow to fall on a given day, is around 9, 8, 9, 10 early in the second week. It then decreases later on. Taking that literally, it suggests a moderate risk of snow during the first few days. 10 equates to about 30%. Then it falls as that milder air mass returns on an increasing number of the runs. Going up to Glasgow to see the picture in the northwest, it's a very similar profile. Most of the runs are cold to begin with, but then an increasing number bring back milder air. The purple line rises above the black line later on, at least for a few days. There are some suggestions there at the very end that it's dipping down once more. Rainfall and snowfall, it's wetter than in the south. The spikes here are bigger, there are more of them. In terms of the snow row, well, it's a little bit higher to begin with, a maximum there of 13, but it also decreases as we go through the second week. Once more, that's because an increasing number of runs are bringing back a milder air mass. Taking a look at the 2-metre temperature data tables, because milder upper level air does not necessarily correlate to higher temperatures down at ground level. I think, though, in this case it does. Here we are going back down to London and southern England. Most of the runs at the beginning of week 2 are in the dark green category, which is indicating maximums of 1 to 5 Celsius. But the amount of light green and yellows increases, dark green and blues decrease. So clearly a signal from this data for it to become milder down at the surface as well, up aloft. Glasgow, it's a similar pattern, albeit from a lower starting point. There's a lot of blues in these columns to begin with. They're the majority, and blue indicates runs forecasting between 0 and -8 Celsius as maximum, so potentially very cold to begin with. Later on, the dark greens increase, the light greens increase, there's even little bits of yellow, which is used to show runs forecasting very mild temperatures for this time of the year. Similar trend to London, turning milder if it's correct through the second week after that very cold start. The surface level pressure data table here for York, it's quite mixed. 1,011 millibars is about the average for this time of the year. That's so runs which are shaded with yellow are really above that, as are the oranges and the pinky reds. Most of the runs, therefore, are going for pressure to be close to or above the average. Later on, though, there's something of a downwards trend showing. Maybe that's because more runs are bringing back areas of low pressure from the Atlantic, high pressure beginning to decline. In fact, when I've looked at the individual runs, the suggestion from a number of them is that high pressure will become centred to the south of the UK, low pressure to the north, so a milder pattern than what we have towards the end of the first week and through the early part of the second. Taking a look at the pressure anomaly for Friday the 31st of December, so it's just a snapshot for this given time. Across the UK, it's a relatively weak anomaly by then. The strong positive, shown by the orange, is to the northwest, over Iceland and Greenland still. There's negative to the south of it. That tends to point towards a negative North Atlantic oscillation pattern. But as I say, by this point, there are suggestions that an increasing number of runs are bringing back milder conditions, and this is just averaging out all of the individual perturbations, as they're called, within the GEFS to produce the anomaly. I'm not entirely confident it's very meaningful on this occasion. Looking at the mean pressure, so averaging out all of the runs again, not to show the anomaly, but to generate the average of them all. Friday, the 31st of December, GEFS. Can see the UK here. Suggestions perhaps of the Atlantic beginning to return, as I say, at this point. And finally, the European ECM ensemble, mean surface level pressure plot at the same time. It's, if anything, I think it's, as I always say, it's easier to read a lot into these, which you shouldn't, but the pattern looks a little bit further east, and that would support the idea of milder conditions returning, perhaps a little bit sooner than they do according to the GEFS ensemble, but the same trend. So, to summarise the next 2 weeks, week 1, it starts rather cold and dry. It then turns milder and changeable through the 23rd and the 24th. But as we go through Christmas Day and beyond, cold air returns southwards. That leads to an increase in risk of rain, sleet and snow. There could be some significant snowfall in places, but it's very, very difficult to quantify amounts at this stage and just where they will fall because of the uncertainty about the boundary between cold and mild. Week 2, it's likely to begin cold. There's a risk of nighttime frost, which could be widespread and sharp. There may also be wintry showers around. However, it then probably turns milder, at least that's the current signal from the medium-range computer models. The wettest conditions become focused on the north and the driest in the south. This scenario I'm going to give a 65% chance. The alternative, which I've labelled scenario 2, is for it to stay cold in much of the UK, but it possibly would turn milder in the northwest, mainly dry as well, a 35% chance. The way this would happen is if high pressure became centred close to or over the UK, Atlantic disturbances possibly just brushing the northwest. And there we have it. In this video, I've tried to strike a balance, but it could easily turn out less wintry or more wintry than I have suggested. Unfortunately, in the UK, it's always very difficult to be confident when forecasting the possibility of cold weather. Nonetheless, I hope that you all get the weather that you would like for Christmas and the festive season in general. Also, I hope that you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Thank you very much for watching now. Bye.